welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass, a series of digital first conversations that we do, talking about all the things that matter the most to you, the entrepreneur. I'm Sunanda Jayasseelan. On tonight's episode, we're bringing you part one of a conversation that I did, speaking about the changes that the pandemic has brought about as far as the dating and the wedding app and platform market is concerned. What are the big trends you, the entrepreneur, can look forward to? What are the disruptions that have taken place? And what are the opportunities? All of that being discussed and decoded on the panel tonight. Let me quickly introduce our guests. Abel Joseph, CEO and founder, IEL. Snehil Khanor, CEO and co-founder, TrulyMadly. Arpit Agarwal, Director, Blume Ventures. Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us and to speak with our audience live here on this very exciting format that we have on the Leaders of Tomorrow, and a format that we've come up with responding to the challenges and therefore the opportunities that were posed by the pandemic. And that's what we're going to be talking about on today's panel. How's the pandemic in some sense forced, but also encouraged entrepreneurs to innovate no matter what industry they may be in, and responding and coming up with products and innovations and solutions for this post-pandemic world. And I want to start today's conversation by talking about the trends that each of you would like to call out for your industry. And I want to start with you, Snehil. The one big trend that you've seen in the dating market post-pandemic that you think is here to stay, that's going to be that big disruptor.
I think one trend which we have identified, which we very strongly feel is here to stay, that a lot of action is happening over video, right? Versus offline physical meetings. For example, even this, this panel discussion today is happening over video on Zoom, which if it was a pre-pandemic world, it would have taken some 3 to 5 years for us to reach here, right? So we leapfrogged those 3 to 5 years. Meeting anybody, be it any business proposal, be it any investment pitch, right? Big investment rounds are now closing over Zoom calls, right? So video has become a very integral part of meeting someone. So same thing is happening in the dating world. First dates are happening over Zoom, and what it has resulted in, for example, pre-pandemic, a normal funnel from a woman's perspective on our app used to be that if she's looking at 100 profiles, she would like 10, talk to 5, and for every 32 guys that she would talk to, she would meet offline 1. Sure. But now, because that friction of meeting or getting connected with each other has reduced drastically, because first, and it is safe, it is the safest way of meeting somebody for the first time, right? Be it because of Corona or anything else, right? So now they are meeting on the first dates. Out of 32 men that she would talk to, they are going on first dates with 2 or 3 men, right? Because it is easy, it is reduced, very less friction, and it tells a lot about the other person, while talking on video versus just chatting or just speaking on phone. Sure. So that is one trend we very strongly believe is here to stay.
So video is a trend that you're calling out, Snehil, that has been, has come about thanks largely to the pandemic, and it's here to stay. Let me come to Arpit. Arpit, 2 or 3 trends that you think have come about due to the pandemic and will definitely, something that is disrupting the industry.
Sunanda, thank you for having me, and it's lovely to be part of this panel. And Snehil and Agarwal are very, very smart and excellent entrepreneurs. There are 2-3 things which I'm observing from the market. One is that there is a clear trend of a large number of people experiencing dating and matrimony first on the apps. So whether it's a TrulyMadly or it is an IEL or there could be something else, you'll see that a large number of people, sometimes in hundreds of millions, are now experiencing matrimony for the first time using the apps. And this is a trend which is here to stay. The market was always very large. 10 million weddings happen in India every year, and 10 million matches have to be found through the funnel. But most people were not using online platforms. Now they are, and increasingly we'll find it more. Second is that this trend is not limited to a limited set of audience, tier 1 location or rich people. It is actually all across tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, sometimes even very small towns across India. There are people who are finding matches on apps like IEL and TrulyMadly. The third very interesting thing is that people are also willing to pay, which is something which is used often against the entire bunch of e-commerce companies in India, that people are not willing to pay for a digital only service, which they are. And the market size, as you're fully aware, is now more than $1.3 billion, about 10,000 crores, and growing very, very fast from there.
Abel, you're sitting in the tech capital of the country, but we already just spoke about what's happening as far as digital and video and technology is concerned. But any other trends that you can call out for our entrepreneurs who've logged in to say these are the big game changers going forward in the mid to short term?
Well, thank you for having us, Sunanda. And obviously, the first trend is the video that Snehil has highlighted. So we sitting in Bangalore and multiple other places, we're yet able to have this masterclass today. And I think the other dating specific trend that I can talk about is what the West describes to be slow dating, and in India, what we have started to call high intent dating. So it essentially means that about 5 years ago, hookup culture was kind of becoming normalized, in the West. And of course, Corona and COVID and everything kind of changed that a little bit. But I think that was also a trend that was picking up in metropolitan cities in India. But that soon changed as soon as COVID hit and everybody had to go back home. We're talking about times when people are not even trusting their own hands, right? How would you go out and meet another person that is a complete random stranger to you? And I think the progress of a relationship that starts on an app, like how Arpit described, it progresses differently now. People are not getting onto phone calls immediately. They're actually getting on Instagram, that is kind of like, based to exchanging memes, building that romance and that emotional connect and trying to get to see what everybody's personalities are like. And then taking a decision as to, hey, you know what, this could either be a friend or a partner. And so I think that's one of the other things that we're discovering, that dating apps are also used as social networking apps, not just for finding love, but also finding a platonic friendship. And I think the other trend that I can probably talk about is what's happening in tier 2 and tier 3. We never expected for India to come online as soon as this. I think TikTok is probably what the agent, the stimuli of, encouraging tier 2 and tier 3 to become phone savvy and using phones to kind of showcase their talent and now also to find love. And believe it or not, a tier 2 and tier 3 are also starting to pay for software, which is something that we never expected. So yeah, these are some of the trends that we are super excited about.
Okay, our first question has already started coming in, and this is coming in from Akanksha Ajmera. She sent us this question saying, what's inspired you to start the app? So this is definitely for both our entrepreneurs from the dating space. Any personal stories that you want to let us in on? Even if it's embarrassing, we love embarrassing stories. Abel, you're smiling away, so let me put you on the spot.
So my story goes that I was fairly confident that, I would have an arranged marriage. I'm from a super conservative family from Kerala. But I think around the age of 23, 24, my father called me and asked if I had somebody in mind. And that was kind of the signal or the green flag for me to actually go out and look for somebody, independently. Once that green signal sort of came in, I actually started signing up on some of the dating apps that were available in Dubai. That was where I was at. And also signed up on the matrimony sites, the market leaders. And I felt like the matrimony players had not innovated as much as they could have. So the designs, the newsletters, it didn't seem very cool or appealing to like a millennial or somebody who was kind of becoming like a Gen Z. So that kind of seemed like an opportunity. And I thought, why not build a a members only sort of a private online singles club, and start a business, but also find a partner through that. And so yeah, that's kind of how it got started.
Okay, so I'm taking that as a yes then, Abel, that you did find your life partner, I'm assuming, after you started your own journey in the entrepreneurial space. Arpit is all smiles. I'm not going to let you off the hook. You've invested in a wedding platform. So is that, also from a personal angle? Did that interest really come about from there, perhaps?
I unfortunately, Sunanda, one regret I have is that I got married before any of these apps were built and launched. So that will remain a regret because I never experienced any of this funnel that our great friends are talking about. I have noticed that the big trend that is happening is about the weddings and the plannings are happening. An inspiration of these is happening via Instagram and through via platforms like the Wedding Brigade, where people are figuring out what kind of colors they like, what designs they like, makeup, candid photography, even booking venues online, and a lot of such workflow has completely moved online.
I'm going to slip into a short break on that note. Back in just a moment. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass. Snehil, any personal connect behind starting TrulyMadly?
Yeah, so yes and no. So when we were thinking on what to do next, right? I remembered that when my sister was looking for her partner on one of a leading matrimony website, we had a rather sour experience where we encountered a scamster and he tried to scam us by telling us that he is an international businessman living out of Dubai. Now that Abel has told us he was from Dubai, I doubt maybe it was him. And but jokes apart, right? He said that he runs a helicopter charter business in India and lives in Dubai. Had a website and everything. Luckily, I was informed enough to check that the name of the company that the website mentions. I had recently learned about MCA corporate Ministry of Corporate Affairs website, and you can go and check whether this company exists or not. And when I did, it didn't. There was no such company in India registered, right? So we thought, can we create something for users who are looking for a life partner, but also protect them in a way that we can so that is how our trust score feature was born, right? That every profile has a trust score basis the kind of verifications you have done, right? And that was the genesis. Then we talked to a lot of people, figure out what all other problems were, and we knew that TAM wise it is such a big market that every year I think some 25 million Indians turn 18, which is equivalent to total population of Australia, right? And India back then was just on the cusp of, so this is, I'm talking about 2012 2013, right? India was on the cusp of a digital revolution, and we knew that TAM is not going to be a problem. Everybody in India will get married. So that is how we arrived on the decision on creating TrulyMadly.
Okay. On that note, let me take our first poll question. Do you think the pandemic has increased the user base of dating apps? That's, of course, pretty much a no-brainer, and that's what we've been discussing on our masterclass today. But I would love to hear from you. The proportion of you would say yes or no. It's a simple yes or no question. Do send us your responses, and I will be taking the response live in just a moment from now. But let me quickly take in our second question, and this is coming from our audience member Tara Tiwari. She's saying, why is everyone targeting only young, not older? So I would assume that, when you're targeting a target, when you're looking at a target audience, you're looking at young people, dating apps, wedding companies, everything that's happening on social, digital media, etc. Everything being targeted at young people, but we're seeing a slight change, at least advertising campaigns. You see the ones like Tanishq, for instance, talking about second marriages, older marriages, etc. Very good point being raised by Tara Tiwari.
So I'll go first, and I'll actually start with a very interesting data point. Our oldest paying member is a 70-year-old man from Ahmedabad, right? So demographically, we, there are more singles in 18 to 34 age group, but we are open and we actually target every single, up till age of 70, even 80, right? And we then match them with people who are of the similar age.
Okay. Arpit, how about the wedding market? Increasingly, do you see more people perhaps looking at, say, second marriages, etc.?
See, there is a lot of taboo that was associated with the divorce in India. Increasingly, at least in the bigger towns, divorce is the taboo has become much lesser. It is not. It is. I mean, sadly, but it is not uncommon to find people within a close circle who are divorced. As a consequence, it has become much more accepted to have a second marriage, maybe even third marriage, who knows. But that is a very important thing, and across the platforms, even on the wedding brigade, there are people who are trying to do a second marriage. However, one thing that remains still in India is that the first marriage is what the parents sponsor, and the second marriage is typically done by the kids themselves. Therefore, the expense and the kind of size of weddings are not as at the same grand scale.
Abel, do you want to jump in on that as well?
Yeah, so I think around 2017, a lot of our users wrote in saying that, look, neither am I single, neither am I divorced, I'm separated. So I think that's kind of when we started to realize that there is another section of society who is kind of, going through a divorce, but is still looking for that partner, to just cut down on that pain, right? The emotional pain that you might go through during that phase. And so the metropolitan cities in India are definitely behaving a lot more like the West. We are aping the behavior here. And I think that is a trend that is soon to follow in tier 2 and tier 3. But talking about, the youth, or are we intentionally targeting the youth? I think the answer for apps like TrulyMadly and us is probably no. And that's mostly because we actually look at the segment as time-rich users and money-rich users. And so time-rich users would be people between the ages of 18 to 24. They might be newly employed, they're fresh into a relationship. They can afford to make a few mistakes in life. Right, but once you cross that 25 age mark, I think your hormones would kick in. You want a partner that you can emotionally invest in, who can potentially you can have a vision with and build a future with. And so they are more than open to paying for these services, while the youngsters maybe are not. So when you look at online dating globally, I think it's probably like a VC driven sort of a industry as well. So engagement is a very important part of it. So to have your engagement metrics to max out, you want the youngsters to be on it, because the money rich and not the time rich would probably spend a few minutes lesser or a lot lesser time on these applications than the youngsters.
Sure.
So it's a decision that businesses have to make. At least in the case of IEL, we've always thought that our platforms are optimized for the older audience who are looking to eventually settle down in the next few years.
Sure. This is the response to our first poll. 92% of you saying yes, 8% of you saying no. Not surprising, the data there. We've got a third question coming in to us from Aisha Rashkiani. And Snehil, this is echoing something that you were saying. You were talking about the scams and the unfortunate experience that you had with your sister. Her question is, how do you protect people from something like the Tinder swindler happening? And that's a great question, Aisha. How do you as entrepreneurs ensure that you're weeding out the scamsters? And and Arpit, you could respond to this as well. How does the industry perhaps ensure that people are not getting put off apps and platforms because of a few bad examples that are perhaps happening? Open to all of you. Abel, do you want to perhaps take this first?
Sure. So, what's the documentary? It's a great documentary on life, how life is like when it comes to online dating and life after. Uh, Look, I think my thoughts on the documentary, at least when it comes to the responsibility of companies building these products, comes down to the last line in that documentary where she's asked, would you use Tinder in future? And she says, of course. Why wouldn't I? Because I'm the one who made the mistake and not really anybody else. So I think there's a personal responsibility that everybody has to take when they're meeting strangers, not just offline, but also online. And so when it's online, I think even more so, because you're literally in a room talking to each other, and there's nobody who's vetting that conversation, unlike in a restaurant or something like that in a public place. But at the same time, when it comes to safety and privacy, we try and intentionally look for certain behavioral trends among users, and basically get them to be curated manually as soon as we see any red flags.
As we're ending tonight's show, here's a quick recap from our entrepreneurs, both from the dating as well as the wedding online digital platforms that they're calling out by way of trends for the mid to short term. Take a look. Conversation about the big trends to watch out for as far as the dating and the wedding apps and platform market is concerned. What do we have lined up in part 2? Here's a sneak peek.
One has to focus on giving more comfort to the women audience as compared to the male audience.
We actually feel that more than 60% of our revenue in the next 3 years is going to come from tier 2 and tier 3.
On an average, a user uses 2 to 3 different dating apps at a time in their phones, right? So it is not a winner takes all market.